Minister of Finance Chris Sinckler says resources are still earmarked to restore the road at Whitehill St. Andrew, which has been severely damaged by landslides. He was speaking at government headquarters on Thursday after receiving a US $1.7 million payout from CRIF, formerly known as the Caribbean Catastrophe Risk Insurance Facility. The funds were related to the effects of Tropical Storm Matthew. Mr. Sinckler said it had not been easy to find a solution to the problems at Whitehill.
We have done some temporary stuff there with some of the resources, yes, but that's not going to hold because, as you in the media know who are familiar with Barbados, it's a Scotland district area and it has always been subject to slippage. So the question is, engineering-wise, do you spend all of those resources in there and then have an event 6 months from now, a year from now, and the entire thing washes away again? Or do you just abandon it and seek to relocate the residents? And there have been varying opinions. They used to talk about lawyers on the one hand and on the other hand, one-handed lawyers. But we also know we've gotten that too from engineers and geologists who are studying the topography of the area and advising them. And their simple advice so far is you don't rush and do anything there because you may not get the result that you want long term. And so we're holding on that, but whilst we're doing that, there are other roads that have been affected by the rainfall, excess rainfall, that we have utilized those resources.
The finance minister said in addition to road repairs, there were other costs associated with the disasters.
It's also, as the acting director of the DEM will tell you, there are a number of residents in Barbados living in low-lying areas. And even though we appeal to them to evacuate and leave the space, and for all intents and purposes, quite a few of them do heed those requests. You can't evacuate a house if it is in a low-lying area. You can leave it, but if that's where you live, that's where you live. And when the rains fall and it floods and it affects the property and so forth and so on, you still have to go in there and do remedial work because that's where persons are living. And that calls for resources. Equally as well, whenever we have to mobilize the national emergency, disaster emergency operation. It seems simple because these guys come over on television looking all calm and nice, like the ducks on the water, swimming quite calmly but paddling underneath. It takes a lot of resources to mobilize and demobilize. So you're mobilized, a whole set of people, police, defense force, and the DEM has the responsibility for all of that, all of the agents of the councils across the country that have responsibility for shepherding people through disasters and so forth. That entire infrastructure costs money to pull together and then to demobilize.